Ever get that feeling you're talking but nobody's really listening? Like you're shouting into a void?
Oh, yeah.
Well, today we're diving deep into Just Listen by Mark Goldstein. He's
Yes.
a psychiatrist, helped everyone from CEOs to, get this, hostage negotiators figure out how to really communicate.
Interesting. I could see where that would be valuable in both of those fields.
Absolutely, right? And Goldstein starts the book with this wild story about, well, you guessed it, a hostage negotiator.
Right.
Turns out, even in those life or death situations, the biggest thing is making someone feel heard.
Makes sense. You can't exactly start with logic and reason when someone's got a gun to their head.
Exactly. That comes later. Goldstein calls it the persuasion cycle. It's how we all go from resisting an idea to taking action.
Interesting. So you're saying most communication breaks down because we miss that first step.
Exactly. We skip over really listening to where the other person's coming from. It's like trying to build a house, but you forgot the foundation.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not going to work. So how do we fix it? How do we actually get better at listening and connecting?
Well, Goldstein says it starts with quieting that voice in your head, the one that's always got a comeback or a solution ready to go.
Oh, I know that voice. It's like having a debate club in my brain sometimes.
Right. But instead of that, he wants us to really tune in to see the world from the other person's perspective.
That makes sense, but honestly, that sounds really hard to do.
It is. It's way easier said than done. Why is it so tough for us to really, truly listen?
Okay, well, think about it this way. Deep inside your brain, you've got these things called mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons.
Yeah, they're like little empathy switches that turn on when we see someone feeling something.
Oh,
It
interesting.
lets us actually share in their emotions, almost like we're experiencing it ourselves.
So if someone's telling me about something that made them mad, my mirror neurons light up and I start feeling a little bit of that anger too.
That's exactly it. It's how we connect on a human level. But here's the catch. If we're always putting ourselves out there, trying to be understood, and we don't get that mirroring back,
Oh, I see.
it's like an empathy deficit.
Like emotional starvation. We need that feeling of being heard. And when we don't get it,
Exactly.
it messes up how we talk to each other. We get defensive. We shut down other people's points of view.
Right, and that's when conversations turn into arguments, or even worse. Goldstein has this example of a CEO seemed super confident on the outside, but underneath, really insecure.
I've met that type.
And because nobody ever really challenged him or made him feel truly heard,
What happened?
he ended up pushing away some of his best employees, created a toxic workplace.
It's like this just listen thing isn't just about being nice. It's about making space for real, genuine connection. And that matters everywhere, work, personal life, you name it.
Absolutely. It's the foundation for any strong relationship. And the best part is, Goldstein actually gives us a playbook, helps us become better listeners. 9 core rules.
Okay, so it's more than just nodding politely and pretending to pay attention.
Oh, absolutely. He digs into the psychology, the why behind it all. Like, take the rule, make people feel felt. Yeah, he tells this story, this couple that they knew, like, tons of facts about each other, favorite foods, childhood memories, everything.
Okay.
But they still felt totally misunderstood.
Wow, it's like speaking different languages even when you're using the same words.
Exactly. Because they weren't connecting on an emotional level, right? It's not enough to just get what someone's saying. You have to show them you understand the feeling underneath.
Oh, I see. So instead of like, yeah, that sounds rough, you'd say something like, I can only imagine how frustrating that must have been for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're stepping into their shoes, reflecting back, not just their words, but the emotions too.
That makes a lot of sense.
And when people really feel heard, they open up, they let their guard down, right?
Huh.
Paves the way for real, honest communication.
And then there's that rule, be more interested than interesting. Honestly, at first I thought, okay, duh. But then Goldstein explained how being interested in someone actually helps lower their empathy deficit.
It's true. When you're genuinely curious about someone, it lights up those mirror neurons in their brain.
Right, right.
They feel seen, understood, and that makes them feel more connected to you.
It's like this positive feedback loop of interest and connection. I like that.
Exactly. So it's not about being the loudest voice in the room telling the best stories. It's about drawing people out, making them feel like they're the most interesting person there.
So, not to be confused with the interesting jackass.
Oh, is that what we're calling them now?
Only in this deep dive. But you know the type, loves to name drop, brag about themselves, never actually listens to anyone else.
Oh yeah, they're so busy with their own highlight reel, they miss out on real connection.
Exactly. Goldstein contrasts them with this other couple, super successful, both in work and life.
Okay.
And their secret, they're just genuinely curious about everyone they meet. It's like they attract fascinating people and experiences because they make everyone feel seen and valued.
Exactly, they get it. Real connection is about drawing people out, not showing off.
Now, on top of these core rules, Goldstein throws in these 12 quick and easy ways to achieve buy-in, like next level communication hacks.
Okay.
One that really stood out to me, the impossibility question. Sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Focus on why something can't be done.
It does, but here's the thing. When you ask someone to explain why something's impossible, you're kind of tricking their brain into problem-solving mode. They're saying yes to engaging with your idea, even if it's just to tell you why it won't work.
So instead of shutting it down, that'll never work, it's more like, okay, tell me, why is this impossible?
Right. You flip the script. Goldstein talks about using this with a TV producer, super talented, but convinced he could never be an executive producer.
Oh, I see.
So Goldstein, he uses the impossibility question. Gets the guy to spell out those limiting beliefs, clears the air, lets them start brainstorming solutions together. Those beliefs, instead of being roadblocks, they're out in the open, ready to be dealt with.
I like that. Turning negativity into like fuel for problem solving.
Exactly. And speaking of shifting perspectives, there's this other technique, the magic paradox. This one seems totally backwards at first.
Okay, now you've got to explain this one. The magic paradox. What's that all about?
All right, picture this. You're talking to someone, friend, coworker, doesn't matter. They are just radiating negativity, stressed, overwhelmed, ready to give up.
Been there.
Right. And your gut instinct is to cheer them up. Tell them to look on the bright side, right?
Which, let's be real, almost never works.
Never works. Because what they really need is to feel heard, understood, right there in that negativity. So instead of fighting it, lean into it.
So like, wow, that sounds incredibly frustrating. It's no wonder you feel deflated.
Exactly. And by doing that, you're actually doing two things. One, you're validating their experience. You're lowering that empathy deficit we talked about. And two, by acknowledging the negative, you actually create space for them to let it go.
It's like by meeting them in that dark place, you're building a bridge to a brighter outlook.
It's funny how that works, right? Goldstein gives this great example. A boss, employee's about to quit. Instead of sugarcoating it, the boss says, look, you've been working hard. You probably feel underappreciated, and that's on me. Just that acknowledgement changes the whole conversation.
It's like that saying, sometimes you have to feel it to heal it. You acknowledge the negativity, you take away its power.
100%. And then, from that place of understanding, that's where real solutions come from. Now, if the magic paradox is about going from negative to understanding, Goldstein takes it even further with the empathy jolt. This one's huge for dealing with conflict.
All right, lay it on me. Conflict resolution, that's something I think we could all use a little help with. How does this empathy jolt work?
So, imagine two people stuck in an argument, each one convinced they're right, the other one's the problem. Classic blame game.
Happens all the time.
Right. We want to jump in, play mediator, get them to see the other side. But Goldstein, he suggests something totally different. He says instead of forcing understanding, ask each person to imagine what the other person would say if you asked them about the conflict.
So they're putting themselves in the other person's shoes, speaking for them even if they don't agree with it.
Yes. And here's the wild part. By doing that, by getting out of their own heads and into the other person's experience, they naturally start to feel more empathy. They may not agree with the other person's view, but they get it.
It's like walk a mile in their shoes. You might not end up agreeing, but you understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. He tells his story, these two lawyers, crazy successful, but always at each other's throats. He walks them through this empathy jolt, and it's like a light bulb goes off. They finally see each other as people, flaws and all.
That's powerful. It's like so much conflict comes from not seeing the humanity in the person we disagree with.
It's so true. And speaking of seeing the humanity, Goldstein doesn't let us off the hook when it comes to ourselves. Big part of the book is about self-awareness, even getting through to yourself.
Right, because how can we really connect with anyone else if we're not even honest with ourselves?
Exactly.
Goldstein asked this question, really makes you think. Is it possible that the person with the problem is you? It's easy to point fingers, but real growth starts with looking in the mirror.
It's a tough question, for sure. And it's crucial, because often we're so busy focusing on what the other person's doing wrong, we miss our own part in it.
It's so easy to get stuck in that blame game. We'd all be better off hitting pause, really examining our own role in the situation.
Totally agree. And Goldstein gives some great tools for that. He talks about challenging that negative self-talk, the one we all have. He even has this 6-step pause technique, helps you make better choices, especially when you're about to react emotionally.
Like hitting the brakes on autopilot and choosing a more skillful response. It makes you wonder, this whole just listen idea, maybe it's not just about communicating better, maybe it's also about growing as a person, becoming more self-aware.
It's a really interesting thought. What if we all really listened? Not just to the people around us, but to ourselves too. What would that change?
It's a powerful idea, and it's one I think we could all use a little more of in our lives. So if you're ready to unlock the power of just listen, I highly recommend checking out Mark Goldstein's book. It's full of those aha moments, practical tools, and inspiring stories that'll change how you connect, not just with others, but with yourself.